Hi, we have another video here on using our trigonometric ratios. Today the videos focus on how to use those ratios to find an angle measure. I really suggest reviewing the other videos I have posted on trigonometric ratios if you forget that sine is opposite over hypotenuse or cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and lastly tangent is opposite over adjacent. This inner box is very helpful, but I'm not really going to rely on that too much in this video. I will be bringing that back for our next lesson. But just to give you a brief understanding, when you want to find a missing angle measure, you use something called an inverse ratio. And inverse ratios have the function risen to the negative first power, and that's how you would write out the work. And x is whatever two sides that you're going to be comparing. Now, for this lesson, I'm already going to be giving you whatever the two sides were, simplified into a decimal or written as a fraction itself, and we're just going to focus on how do we plug it into the calculator. The next lesson, I'm going to be using this table and giving you different triangles to use to set up the different pieces. But just to explain it one time, and then I'll re-explain it in the next video, if you were trying to find the missing angle measure of A, I could use the inverse tangent ratio because I have an opposite side and an adjacent side to that specific angle measure. And what that would look like work-wise is I would say the inverse tangent, so the tangent of -1, times the fraction of what the tangent ratio is, opposite over adjacent, or 5 over 12, would be equal to the measure of angle A. Now for today, I am just giving you what is the decimal of whatever the sides were, or what is the fraction of those sides. So if I wanted to know what is the measure of angle A when given that this is the sine math, I would type in the sine of -1 of 0.5878. Now in your calculator, you're probably going to have to utilize the second tool. Here on this calculator that I have, which I just typed in scientific calculator and I went to Desmos, I click on functions and then I hit the inverse sine of exactly what I gave you, 0.5878, and hit enter, and I round to just the nearest degree. I'm going to have the measure of angle A is equal to 36 degrees. And I should put the degree sign, but I'm not inserting that right now. Now in the next example, I'm going to be doing the exact same thing, except now instead of the inverse of sine, I'm using the inverse of cosine. So what I would type in is the inverse cosine of, what's our decimal, 0.1908, and I want to know what that angle measure would relate to. I go to my calculator and I hit the inverse cosine of 0.1908 and hit enter, and it's about 79 degrees. And for the last one, we're just practicing what the inverse of the tangent would look like. And for this one, we're going to be plugging in a fraction to the calculator. So I would be typing in the inverse tangent of 16 over 19. So in the calculator, the inverse tangent, 16 over 19, and hitting enter, and that's about 40 degrees. So when you're talking about finding an angle measure using the trigonometric ratios, you're always using this inverse setup here. So in the calculator, you actually have to make sure that that is the setting that you are using, because if you use sine, cosine, or tangent, it would not be actually solving for the correct work. So good luck. Please make sure you print this out. I think it's more helpful to have the work written down. This is what your work should look like for the homework that I'm assigning. If I don't see any work, I will not be assigning any credit. Again, this video focuses on finding missing angles using inverse ratios.